Hey there, fellow wargamers. It's your man. It's a Sentinel from across the tabletop. I just wanted to break down a list that I'm taking to a GT this weekend coming up. The first Arks of Omen GT that I will be attending this year. Hopefully, many more to come. I've got one on the 28th of January in Oxford, the Oxford Onslaught. One in the Clumsy Orc Studio in the Midlands. So the list I submitted on the BCP for the tournament we'll go through quickly, and then we'll talk more about what I expect and how to deliver that army to win games. Okay, come on, computer, mouse, where are you? Screen 2. Okay, so first off, it's an Arks of Omen detachment, and it starts with 3 CP. So that means I only spent 3 CP to create the list. We went with the heavy support choice. So it's an Arks of Omen heavy support. So it's 1 HQ and then 3 compulsory heavies, which then allow me to spread the others out after that. I have got a non-force organization slot. So essentially in the Space Marine Codex, when it states that you bring a character or a certain model, you're allowed to bring another unit that doesn't take up any slots within the force organization, and this would be the Servitors, just bog standard 4 Servitors, and they go with a Techmarine, so you can only take it if you take a Techmarine. So I have a Primaris Techmarine. He has the at 70 points. I upgraded him to be my Warlord. I gave him the Warlord. This is my Primaris one. So he's got the axe, the assault bolter, which is essentially a heavy bolter but assault weapon with its stat line AP 1/2 damage. I gave him the Hand of Dorn, so that's D3 extra CP. And the list I'm running, I haven't really given him the relic for the Eye of Hypnoth because I'm not expecting him to buff anything in the reroll aspect of the game as much as I used to. So the army's a lot more spread out. It's a lot more flexible in what it can and can't do in those aspects. And we'll get into why I'm running this sort of list in the way I am. So here's the Warlord. Fleetmaster, it's a very simple Warlord trait. You drop an orbital bombardment, and on a 4-up, that unit suffers D3 mortal wounds. It's not massive. I'm tempted to drop it, but I just like the idea if someone does castle, I can kill orcs, for instance. If they've got a unit of Gretchen on the back, and I just want them to fail a morale check and shrink that unit for, say, Green Tide, that gives me the possibility to hinder them from scoring as many Green Tide points as possible, because it means they have to then look at keeping models back to secure that quarter. It's only very specific in a couple of armies. Doesn't benefit all armies that I'll be facing, but I just thought it'd be interesting. It's at the end of the morale phase, or the end of the fight phase before the morale phase is taken part in. So you could potentially wait till turn 3, get into combat, do 1 or 2 wounds, not enough to make a morale, drop the orbital bombardment down, cause a couple of more wounds on that unit, and now they're going to fail a morale check. It's a very complicated, not complicated, it's a very interesting mechanic. I don't know if I'll keep it. I'm going to try it out. Tried it out in 1-2 games, and unfortunately, because it's a orbital bombardment of D6, I'd have to double check if there any FAQs have been changed with it, but essentially it's a pick a point, roll a D6, and then a 4-up, that unit suffers. So there's lots of mechanics that might not be beneficial, because there's lots of dice rolls that will, on some games, not roll well enough. One game I rolled a 1, so I only had a 1-inch orbital bombardment, which was rubbish, and then on 4-up, and I failed the 4-up, so nothing happened. It's a little bit frustrating, but it also makes your opponent think when you tell them you have an orbital bombardment in your army. They spread out a little bit more, even though it does nothing. Psychological warfare, that's the game of this game. Then we got Primaris Librarian, Might of Heroes, and the Fortress, the Psychic Fortress. I think this is going to be a staple now in most armies, just because of the resilience. So if you're not running a load of Storm Shields with a 4-up invuln, you're going to need an invulnerable save at some point in the game, and the Psychic Fortress aura from your Librarian is going to be huge. So that's why he's in the army. I have a standard Techmarine with a Combi-melta, a Omnissian axe, and a Servo-arm. He also comes with the Servo-arm, then also comes with the Flamer and Plasma and the Servo attack. So essentially a little bit more shooty, but he comes in his own. And Torgaradon, the reliable backfield one punch man, with his strength 12, flat 3 damage, power fist. Unfortunately, it's still -1. That is a little bit frustrating, but if you can get Might of Heroes on him, he can be quite punchy. So, where was I? So that is the HQs. I took 4 HQs, 1 compulsory and the 3 extras, and it's to do with how the army essentially functions now on the table. In the troops, I did take troops, even though you don't have to. I took a heavy intercessor unit with the heavy bolt rifles and the heavy executioner. So the heavy bolt rifles and the executioner heavy bolter. So it's a 5-man unit. I've just found that you stick these guys on the back objective where people can see them or not see them, and they're usually the last thing they shoot at because they're not ideally your primary target. So they last a little bit longer around, and they just become a little bit more efficient in the long run when you're having that unit at the back. And I do the same when I face the heavy intercessors and they're sat at the back objective. I'm actually more concerned about what's coming towards me and not what's sat on the back objective. And a simple, Death Strike missile or the mortar units that are going to come around and try and take them off the back objective aren't going to be efficient enough to kill them. So in cover, you can give them if they're on an objective, you can give them the extra armor save on the objective, shield and wavering. You can also give them bolster defenses, which is a stratagem. As long as they're on the objective at the beginning of the turn or the beginning of the movement phase, you can then give them an extra armor save. So essentially, and then you've got the Mark stratagem, the Mark 8 to Mark 10 Gravis stratagem, which gives them an extra armor save against damage 1 weapons. So you could potentially have this 5-man unit with a Feel No Pain, with transhuman, with -4 AP essentially with their covers and damage reductions and all that sort of stuff, be quite resilient on that back objective if you really need them to be. Then I've got the 2 units of infiltrators with the Helix upgrade, because why not? It's free, 100 points. They're going to sit in that no man's land data the new data battlefield data role. If they need to do that one, they can do a lot of screening. If they need to push into behind enemy lines, they're roadblocks. They're quite resilient. They're not as easy as you believe to take down with that first failed armor save that you just ignore with a Feel No Pain and a transhuman, because they're Primaris. Great little unit in the middle. Sticky objective, going to be huge. Jump on them turn 1. Push up, push backwards if you need to, or push forward to deny. It could be quite interesting, and I believe that's where a lot of the armies are going to be leaning into, the infiltrators and incursors. Straight onto the elites then, we've got the Leviathan. This is a replacement for the Redemptor. Similar sort of damage output with the Volkite in the nipples, essentially the nipple guns for the Volkites, and then the Storm Cannon Array. Yes, the AP isn't the same, but the damage to AP2, on the same sort of level of number of shots to wounds taken, are similar in the sense of what target it's affecting. And then when going up against vehicles, it's damage 3. I've got the 300 killer missiles on there because they just are reliable when you want that one unit to die and you've got 3 shots, or that one model and you want those 3 shots. At strength 10, AP2, D6 damage. And again, at vehicles, it's very tasty. And then that means that the +1 to wound vehicles can be very handy for that strength 10 weapon. I then have 2 units of scouts. I think maybe possibly might come back the scouts with their point reduction and the free upgrades. They're quite a interesting unit to see on the tabletop now. It's the outflank rule. I think it's going to be massive for them, ignoring that opponent's side when it's coming on from reserves. They just ignore it and come on from whenever they want. So that's going to be cool. And the fact that you get the free upgrade to having a combi weapon, the Thunderhammer. So this unit is 60 points. It's a 5-man unit. The Sergeant has a Combi-melta and a Thunderhammer. And then I've given them a heavy weapon each. So the first unit's got a heavy bolter, and then my second unit has a missile launcher. So yeah, exactly the same loadout for the Sergeants, Thunderhammer and Combi-melta, and then the missile launcher. Fast attack, I've gone with 2 attack bites with the multi-melta upgrades. So the scouts, essentially they're going to go into reserve. They need them to come in from outflank to do data, battlefield data, or behind enemy lines, or just take a quarter, because there's a couple of objectives that you can get onto the objective from the side of the board. I'm looking at data salvage. You can from that one edge, but your opponent has it, so you technically can't. But the outflank rule ignores that, because the scouts are quite interested on that sort of behalf. And then there's the one where you move the objectives. Missing artifacts. If you move the opponent's objective onto closer to the battlefield edge, you can get your scouts on there at later points of the game. So very interesting sort of unit to use. The attack bikes, fast moving. They're good for screening out the back because they're large models, and with the 2 inches you can screen quite a lot. The footprint, they are scary. They can be used in the advantage of going first or second for that bump in the middle. They're not bad for over moments because you can use that speed on them to get them there and get you those couple of points at last turns. So very useful, very dynamic unit. Multi-melters, who's complaining about that? 4 shots, yeah, with those units with the 0 minus to them. So great little unit. And then the staple of most Imperial Fist armies now are going to be the 2 suppressor units. I do think there is a valid point to put the interceptors in, but I don't think the bolter variant works still, even though we benefit from bolters. I think because of the points reduction in the fact that the plasmas are going to be good, I still think there could be a question to ask for putting the infiltrators in. They just don't benefit the secondaries that I'm trying to achieve with this army list. Heavy support, gone with the Devastator squad, 4 las cannons, add some points, juggled a few things around. We've got a 115 point unit, 4 las cannons. I was tempted to put other weapon systems in, like the grav cannon in there for one of them, but the reliability of just going that 2 or 3 man unit needs to die, or that 1 man unit needs to die. I just want the reliability of going, here's 4 las cannon shots, just die. Yeah. The whole point of putting different weapon systems in, you find these split fire, you're thinking you might be able to do enough damage with one weapon system, and it ends up failing. So going with the more overkill than trying to kill everything with a little bit. So just overkill with the unit. And then the other ones then in the Devastator Doctrine, we've got the Gladiator Reaper. So this is the first Gladiator Reaper with all the upgrades, the auto launcher, the Icarus rocket pod, and the Iron Heavy Stubber. And then we've got another Gladiator Reaper, exactly the same build out. And we've got Repulsor Executioner with the Macro Plasma, Icarus Rocket Lords, and the Iron Heavy Stubber. And that's 4 units in the heavy, which is why I went with the heavy detachment. I'm tempted to swap a few things around and take some more heavies, but at the moment I'm quite comfortable with the way the game, the results of the missions have been playing and who've been playing against. So I've also put down a giveaway, 13 victory points for Assassinate, 9 victory points for Bring It Down, and then 7 victory points for No Prisoners. That's not including the bonus, so the bonus would be 8. But I only give 7 away, so you'd have to work out if you can get to 7, then you get the bonus. The Repulsor Executioner, have been trying it with the Laser Destroyer. I like the idea that it's strength 12 and it's AP 3 or AP 4, D3 plus 3 damage. But it's only 2 shots, so the maximum efficiency is 4 macro plasma shots with a flat 3. And the macro plasma can go off and roll 6. With the extra damage, I actually make more damage with the plasma, the macro plasmas, with the +1 damage to vehicles. So why not? I did try it. I played a few games with it, and every time I fired it at what I wanted to fire at it, like the vehicles or the heavy, infantry models that I wanted to kill, I ended up only hitting once, and they would normally make their invulnerable save if they had one. And it was just like, okay, I'll kill 1. But the plasma's got the potential to kill 3 on average. Say that. Depends if they make their invons or not. So I went with that one instead. It hasn't performed as well as I thought it would on the table. I thought it'd be much more of an impact on the table with its number of shots, with all the different weapon profiles, with the fact that it's got 2 firepower. It's got the firepower of 2 Redemptors. But actually it's a bit underwhelming. So probably will change. This will be the real test of it. The GT, the 5 games in a row. This will be the real test to see if it actually, and I'll keep an eye on it, and I'll make notes of what it kills, how it killed it, when it killed it, and if it survived in turn 1, turn 2. It's quite a hard unit to hide. And then we'll go through if it can potentially be changed or not. It's 250 points, so it's quite expensive. Another Devastator, 2 more Devastator squads in a drop pod may be more viable with a scout unit dropped. So there's always possibilities for a change. So that is that's the list that I'm taking to the GT. Okay, so what I wanted to do is show you the list, physically show you it. So here we go. We just ran through it. So we're going to go through now the list composites and what I expect each unit to do and how I expect it to work for them, if that makes sense. So we've got the HQs down here. We've got Torgaradon, the Librarian, and the Techmarine, plus we've got the other Techmarine. So this is 2 Techmarines, baby Techmarine or firstborn Techmarine with all his awesomeness. My Primaris Techmarine, again, all his awesomeness. And then the rest of the army. So first off, we've got the Infiltrators. That's the troops. Heavy Intercessors with the heavy, just roll a call with a Thunderhammer. And then another Infiltrator unit. My plan is essentially to have one of the Infiltrator units in the middle of the board, possibly to deny movement from the enemy, pre-game moves, control that objective. And then one of these to be sat at the flank at the back, especially if I've taken the secondary battlefield data. That gives me the opportunity at least then to pull the one unit off the table and bring it down turn 5 to score me that back quarter battlefield supremacy to max out the 12. I have the scouts at the servitors at the back to keep when I pull that unit off, to give me the deep strike availability at the back to nullify that, to stop that from happening. And then that will allow me then to do data intercept if I need to, the hold the back objective, even though it's sticky, and all the other good stuff that the servitors do on that backfield objective. Then we have the scouts, the 2 scout units. Again, look, Combi-melta on the sergeant with a Thunderhammer, Combi-melta with a sergeant with a Thunderhammer. I have tried to get as many of these units up to scratch with WYSIWYG. Even the sergeant from the Devastator unit has a Combi-melta now, and then I strapped a Thunderhammer onto his back. So yeah, hopefully when playing opponents they can visually see the sergeants that have the equipment. The 2 suppressor units. If I'm taking behind enemy lines, one of these units will be in deep strike, and then the other one sits on the back line to allow myself to push forward late game with 2 units. So turn 3 the suppressors come down, and then turn 4 and 5 the back unit pushes up to get into there on turn 5. The scout units, if I take behind them in line, allow me to get that little bit more comfortability. The infiltrators, if I do take behind them in line on turn 1, pushes into it if they can with a deployment on the line, go first. You know, it's lots of ifs and buts, but essentially the secondaries you take is Codex Warfare for this army, because there's a heavy weapon in pretty much every unit apart from the infiltrators. So secondary Codex Warfare, I'm going to try and take behind enemy line where I can. Shock Tactics is a great one now, with the fact that you can pull the infiltrators off the objectives and then re-engage the enemy with those units now. And if they don't do it, you still got sticky, and then you can push on to the backfield objectives if need to. Oath of Moments is still a great one to take, because you're essentially trying to kill the army anyway with Codex Warfare, and the benefits of Oath of Moments with that one. And then Assassinate No Prisoners if they're options. Bring It Down is an option against Titan armies. So against the Knights army, it's much better to go with Bring It Down. They give away 2 points for all the armigers anyway, same as Codex Warfare. But then I don't have to worry about the priority targets on the weapon systems trying to kill the units. I can charge if I need to. I can deliver a bolter shot in the last second to kill one. Melter guns on the Leviathan will help as well. He is kitted out with the siege drill, so in combat that's going to be 6 damage onto those knights, which are going to be massive, especially against the armigers that only have 12. He should be able to take down 1 armiger on his own with his 6 attacks. You know, Might of Heroes. Can he? No, Might of Heroes can't affect him because it has to be core character. But you know, there's the abilities to make that Leviathan at least effective against the armigers or smaller, yeah, the smaller vehicles out there. The idea of the attack bikes and the Devastators are that medium anti-threat in the middle. They hide very well, they're easy to get into cover, they're easy to maneuver around the board, and they're very good at taking out that medium threat in the middle. The two gladiators, so the repulsor executioner at the back there, as you can see, it's not fully painted yet. It's got its undercoat. I've got its main weapons out to get those painted, and that will be done by the end of the week. Both of my gladiators are now done. If you've been watching anything, the other one was very much still on sprue a week ago, so I'm quite impressed that that's up and running now. It's got its transfers on. So this is the new one, Iron Duke compared to the Dauntless. Quite happy with the way they turned out. Do need to get their stubbers secured properly because they're not quite on there yet, but that'll be done shortly. What we're going on to then, the heavy. So yeah, the strategy essentially for the army. I played a couple of games now. I played 7 games now, I think, with the new Arks of Omen, and I believe reserves are going to be key. I tried to start both of the repulsors on the table once, couldn't get the movement with them. They were outplayed and then outgunned. So I've generally, the last 3 games, had both of those units in reserve with the Librarian and a Techmarine. So when they come on, the Librarian can give them a 5 of invuln for the return fire. I can put with them with an Infiltrator unit if I need to deny that 12 inches from the return of deep strikes. And also the great thing about the vehicles themselves, if anybody does get quite in range with the pre-measurements, you can do the repulsor field, which allows them to have -2 to their charge ranges, and then you could still spend a CP the next turn to fall back and shoot if it survives. It's got smoke screens, so -1 to hit. It's huge as well, and they are T8. The concern is they're only 12 wounds, so most of the anti-armor weapons will chew through these gladiators. So they need to come down, they need to kill their target, and then they need to survive at least 1 round of shooting. Now, if you bring them both on at the same time, my hope is that the threat overload from one flank that you bring them on, and then the boards and the way line of sight works on the boards is going to be very tricky once you've killed the threat that they're meant to come on and do, to come back and kill both of them. I generally would lose one or down to 1 wound anyway on the other, and then that allows you the movement on the second one then to do the job of coming in and finishing off what was round the back anyway. So that's the sort of gameplay with the 2 gladiators, and have been working quite well in the last couple of games. I'm happy with that. The scouts have been interesting. They come on, they don't generally do much, but they definitely scored me more secondary points having those 2 little units to do it. I've not quite got the head round the infiltrators being sticky, but that's really cool. The heavy intercessors were really nice the other night against the Night Lord. Stuck one out, took the objective, and then pulled back off the objective, and he couldn't quite move his guys out. He had to advance them, which means he couldn't charge them, and then he couldn't move them enough to get on the objective without being in no man's land and being shot at return fire. So he had to wait until I'd put something in the middle for him to do some shenanigans with a charge to take the objective back, which was huge because it meant there was a standoff on one side of the board, just waiting for the other person to make a mistake to capitalize on it. So essentially the repulsor, the Leviathan, go on the table at the back, on the back objective, with the Primaris, Techmarine and Tor Garadon. They both get +1 a hit from those 2 units. I've gone away from the rerolls because there's a few armies now just nullifying the rerolls. So just go +1 a hit. It's much more effective with the units I'm taking, as they don't benefit from complete rerolls. Vehicles don't get the core keyword essentially, and the Leviathan loses it. And then the Psyker and the other Techmarine go with the 2 vehicles on the flank. Pretty much everything else deploys then, and it's about then countering the deployment with your opponent to make the best use of getting your Codex Warfare, because it's no longer on the books as maxing out at 5. You then just wait for the perfect opportunity to do 6 or 7 units in a turn. That's pretty much what the list is intentionally designed to do. I hope that helps. I hope that sort of brings in some questions of how I am performing or how I'm going to be looking at it. Like I said, Codex Warfare, potentially Battlefield Data, or so yeah, Codex Warfare, Battlefield Data, if need to be, behind enemy lines if possible, depending on the mission and the army. It's quite nice with the units I have. Shot Tactics is a great one. It's like a 12 for 3, maybe, you know, if you can get 3 objectives off your opponent in 5 turns, it's 12. So potentially the list I'm trying to achieve is a 90 to 90 point score is what I'm trying to achieve with this list. It's absolutely doable. I do believe there's a few points to drop here and there. When you take data, you only got maxed out at 12, so you're losing 3 there. Shock tactics, I expect to lose 3 on that one, but potentially still maxing out, so there's 6, so it's a 94 score. And then I'm guaranteed not guaranteed. There's a good chance that the enemy, once they see the firepower, will push onto my objectives as fast as possible, deny me primary. Therefore, I have to then fight back really hard to get the primary, which then leaves me 4 points down. So again, that brings me to the 90 to 94 score. That's the potential. Codex Warfare, as long as there's 8 units on the table, I should quite comfortably by the end of the game score that. That's the point there. 15 there, done. Move on. Over moments is still a possibility, and so is the Imperial Fist one. Gone completely. Don't even worry about it. It's not even on my radar anymore. Played it a few times, and it's still not efficiently scoring the points that it should do. So that's the list. Let's go back to who my first game's going to be against. Yep, it's true. I did get a little notification from Best Coast Pairing saying that pairings were out for the weekend, and we got a gentleman named Sid, and Sid is bringing, don't know if you'll be able to see this, let's see if I can change it over. So Sid is bringing knights. I don't know how well you're going to see this, guys, sorry about that. Let's see if we can zoom in a little bit. So he's bringing knights, Imperial knights, and he's used, of course, the Arks of Omen detachment, the Lord of War, and he's bringing, I think it was last time I calculated, was it 13? Yep, 13 Armigers, Warglaves. So Armigers, Warglaves, and Armiger Helverins. It's bringing 13 of them, so it's going to be a little bit of a, not a struggle, but this is an ideal matchup for us with the extra damage from the weapon systems. And it will be a real test to see if I can deal with that much armor running towards us. I think it worked out at 156 wounds. So yeah, we'll hopefully chew through them, but it's all going to be about first turn terrain, what gets put on the board and what doesn't. It is tear down their icons is the first mission. He's got a lot of melter weapons in the army. The first unit's got the iron heavy stubbers. So that's the auto cannons, iron heavy stubber. Then we've got, because the Helverins are the auto cannon guys, the Warglaves are the melters and the 30-inch melter lances. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 with the melter lances, and then about 6 of the auto cannons. And then we've got 1 super heavy auxiliary ally detachment with the lightning locks. So they're essentially, I want to say they're like strength 6, AP 2 damage, exploding on 6s for 2, and they have a stratagem for mortal wounds, or a relic that can give mortal wounds out on 6s as well. So yeah, it's going to be a great little matchup. That I was hoping for something that would benefit my doctrine, and it does, because I'm going to be saying the devastated doctrine the whole game. All those extra strength 7 weapons are going to do extra damage. I don't believe the knights have a reduction in damage innately, and even if it did, it just means that I'm doing the normal damage, so it's going to be great. They've all got a 5-up invuln, and I believe this first unit here has a 2-up save, but again, most of my weapon systems are either going to take it to a 4 or to a 5, so as long as I put my heavy stuff in here, that 2-up save is not going to be an issue. The las cannons are going to really enjoy this matchup if I can get the shots off at the right time, and so is the suppressors. If I can keep those suppressors around long enough, you know, focus firing one of those into one of the Armigers or Warglaves, that is going to be devastating. They're only 12 wounds a pop, so my weapon systems do have a great chance at strength 7, AP 2, 3 damage against them to really put the hurt down on them. They do degrade, so of course once I start degrading them, the efficiency is lost from them, and hopefully I can start affecting their army in a massive way. They're also going to be super fast. They're going to be on top of me really quickly, which is where I think that whole tagging the vehicles and then pulling back out of combat and still shooting is going to be huge. So we've got 34 players in total attending the tournament. It's going to be a 5-round game, and I worked it out earlier that there's 1 Nids player, 2 Great Knights, 3 Necrons, and in the Chaos we've got 2 Black Legions, 1 Night Lord, 1 Death Guard, 1 complete Demons of Mick. So he's got Nurgles, Demon, got a couple of Demon Prince, Change, a Demon of Change. We've got Demonettes, Bloodletters, Hounds. So that's quite an interesting list there. For the Marine side of it, we've got 2 Iron Hands, 1 White Scarves, 2 Blood Angels, 3 Space Wolf players. I believe they're just trying to try out their 4 Pinvon interest stuff on their Thunderwolves now. Myself as the Imperial Fist player, 1 Ravenwing. I've heard massive praise for these at the moment with their 4 Pinvon moving, their 2 Ravenwing land speeders, lieutenant guys, just doing the work. 1 Asiani, 1 guard player. I don't believe he's using the new book. I'm not 100%. He could still be using the old book, but he should be using the new. I don't think there's a restriction on that, so he might be using the new one. He's got the 3 Katakan units, so I'm assuming he is. 3 battle. It's got 3 Lehman Russes, 3 units of Katakan, 2 mortar units, bunch of infantry. He's even got a Tempestus allied detachment, so I'm assuming that he's using the new book on those particular rule sets, because I believe if you use the allied detachment to bring the Tempestus, they become the Tempestus. So the Tempestus units then become OBSEC. So I believe this is designed to do behind enemy lines, maybe engage and all the other good stuff. But it's a very heavy infantry based army with 3 Lehman Russes, I believe, and I believe they're all executioners as well, so the plasma ones, and 1 Vanquisher, so 2 executioners and 1 Vanquisher. It's going to be a lot of firepower from that little squad. We've got 2 Imperial Knight players, 3 Drukhari players, 1 Orc player. Again, that's Nick with his wonderful Goths that he's been playing more and more with loads of Beast Snugger boys. 3 Custodian units, again with Rich down here was on the team, and Rob's on the team there as well, using theirs. Drukhari, we've got Rich as well, who's bringing his. 2 Votan players, which are going to be cool. Night Lords of Charlie's army, so that's going to be great to see. We do have a Necron player, I believe, is bringing his as well. So there's going to be quite a few from the Ambrosden team down there playing this weekend to test our lists, to see what we think about the meta and the Arks of Omen before we submit them from the international team tournament. I think there's 5 or 6 of us going. That's going to be really cool. There's a lot of Marine bodies: Black Legion, Night Lord, Death Guard, Iron Hands, White Scars, Blood Angel, Space Force, Imperial Fist, so there is a lot of that T3, T4, 3 up save, 2 wounds. Death Guard do have their mortars back in that unit, so it's 2 of the Night bring Bright Crawlers, the Blight Crawlers, to 2 Blight Crawlers and Mortys in the list as well. So that's going to be a great little list to test out. It's got the lawn mowers in there. He's got the Death Spitters. I'm sure he's got the flies as well. So it's going to be a great little, Death Guard list. The Night Lords are very heavy on the movement with the jump packs. I haven't really looked at the Black Legion lists. I'm assuming that's going to be a standard Black Legion lists. Space Wolves are mostly on the cavalry sort of side of life. What I have noticed in all of the Iron Hands, White Scars, Blood Angels, Space Wolves, there is elements of the Gladiator body. So one of the Blood Angel lists has 2 Gladiators. White Scars has a Gladiator Lancer, I believe it is. Same with the Blood Angels, 1 Lancer, 1 Reaper. I saw a Space Wolf unit with a Gladiator in there. I think because of the 150 points now, the Gladiator has got a place on the board. And that's going to be a real test. That's why the last cannons are there at strength 9, and then the +1 a wound. So it'll be wounded on 2s at AP 4, D6 +1 damage. I'm hoping I can get that line of sight. Tor Guide and give +1 a hit if needs to be. And then those last cannons are hitting on 2s, wounded on 2s, go straight through the armor, and then destroying those gladiators before they get to do the return fire. So it's going to be a great little matchup if those come along. Again, like I said, I'm up against, the Knights to game 1 on table 1. It's probably the highest I've ever been in any of my tournaments lately. that I've been to, especially over Christmas. So it'll be great to see if I can stay there. I'd like to finish at least either an 80 or a 90, that sort of score. I know the Knights are going to score well as well, but it's all going to be down to that first 2 turns positioning. If I can get the objectives, I can drop the bombs as well, and then push aggressively if I need to. So yeah, secondaries, bring it down over Codex Warfare because I've got to kill him anyway. Tempted to take the data one because his units are only 13. Once I've killed half of them, he doesn't have half the board control that he would like. So I have more opportunity to get that one unit behind the back to do the battlefield data, and then I should be able to comfortably do it in the other 3 quarters. It's just always that 1 quarter at the back that's going to struggle. But the Knights are probably my best opportunity to get all 4 quarters without too much of a drama, because the way the board's positioned and terrain, and the fact that he has to be in range, and just pulls him off that back quarter. And the scouts are great then for coming on and just going, we're really small bases, and we're 5-man units, so here we go, we're at the back. Then so that gives me potential 12 to 15, and then the last one, shock tactics. And the only reason I say this is because he's going to move fast. He's got obsec and everything, counts as 5, I believe, anyway, counts as 5 obsec. He's going to move on to my objectives quite quickly, and then I'm going to have to do something about it by taking them back. If I can do that at least 3 times without the 5 rounds, I'll get the 12 points. So that's my plan. We'll see how that goes. Cheers guys for tuning in. I'll give you an update on how the tournament goes. I'll hopefully get some great pictures, and we'll catch you again soon. Take care, and bye bye.